Stellenbosch is widely regarded as one of the hotbeds of high-performance sport in South Africa. Rugby, hockey, cricket, soccer, cycling, athletics and swimming are just a few of the sports that enjoy high profile at the university town. Well, now a sport that is less well known, namely ultimate Frisbee, took centre stage on the Kutsenberg fields, as Peter Jessup explains.
We are out here today in Stellenbosch University for the Mixed Nationals South African Ultimate Tournament for 2019. So what that is Ultimate is a game where you have 7 a side on the field. This is particularly mixed, where it's both male and female on the field at the same time, whereas sometimes you can also have the all-male or all-female divisions as well.
Most of us have, at one stage or another, tried to throw Frisbee with varying degrees of success. The Frisbee is a round plastic disc with great aerodynamic properties. Ultimate, as its name suggests, is the highest form of the sport in its competitive form. So how does it work?
The easiest way to think about Ultimate Frisbee is you've got 7 on each side, a little bit like American football, where you've got to catch it in the end zone that you're busy attacking, while the opposition have to try force a turnover, which can be making the other team throw it out, down, or you just straight intercept the disc, and then they go and attack the other end zone to try score the point. When you have the disc, you're not allowed to move, so it's like a bit like netball in that sense. So all the movement is off the disc. Everyone is busy running, trying to create space off the disc, and it's a lot of running.
So physical fitness is a prerequisite for the players. But what about the Frisbee itself? Is it any different to the one being thrown on beaches and in parks around the country over the weekends?
We use, it's a Frisbee that is governed by the World Flying Disc Federation, or we call them WFDF. They've said it has to be for ultimate, it's 175 grams, a certain shape, lip size, so it's very standardized. Sadly, South Africa, there are no manufacturers that actually produce these, so we have to either import them from Canada or America. But yeah, so that's how we get our discs, but they are standard. They aren't the casual ones that you sometimes get at a sportsman's or just at your local store.
As the name suggests, as a South African championship, the tournament involved players from all over the country, with the ultimate aim of crowning a national champion team. So what was the tournament's format?
So this is a club tournament. So we have clubs from all across the country here. We've sort of split the country into 4 regions. We've got the southern region in Cape Town, or more the western region, then the southern being in the Eastern Cape. Then you also got KwaZulu-Natal and then Joburg. And the surrounds, we've also got Potch here and Bloemfontein. So it is all over the country. It's still quite small time. There's only about 500 active competitive players in our community, but that is growing.
In all sporting disciplines, most young players dream of representing South Africa at an international event, or even better, at a World Championships or an Olympic Games. Is that now possible in the sport of ultimate Frisbee?
There is a South African team. We've competed internationally a few times. Just coming up, we actually have the World Under-24 Championships happening in Germany, in Heidelberg, and we're sending a squad up there. That's also the mixed division. So we're very excited for our national squad that are currently training for that tournament. We only sort of form our national sides for particular tournaments that happen. So like every 4 years there is the World Tournament, which that one is now next year. So we're starting getting the ball rolling on selecting coaches, and then we'll select the squad for the 2020 campaign for the World Tournament.
With so many nations taking part in many global events along age and gender categories, which nation is the dominant one when it comes to throwing the Frisbee in competition?
So the best in the world are where the game was created, which is in the United States. They are far outranking every country. The last World Tournament, they took all 3 divisions, the men's, the women's and the mixed, and the masters and all the other ones. So otherwise, you've also got Canada, you've got the UK, you've got Colombia, which is also a very, very good South American team, and Australia, as always, very good at the sport.
With just over 500 active competitive players, South Africa is hard-pressed to win major events on the Ultimate Frisbee calendar. But it's not all about the numbers. The local teams lack for nothing in spirit and confidence, as well as dedication. So how do South Africa fare against the big guns?
So South Africa is probably punching to try be in the middle table when it comes to these tournaments. We do match up against some of these big clubs at the big nations at these tournaments, and it's just a pleasure to see the high level that these guys play at. But in terms of where we're at, we are still very much developing a small community. Like I said earlier, we're about 500 strong. I think in the US, they've probably got 3.5 million people playing the sport. So you can just see what the numbers we're dealing with. Yeah.
The future of ultimate Frisbee is dependent on the number of new players coming through. It's tough enough for the well-funded and well-supported popular sports to grow at grassroots level. But the South African Flying Disc Association have taken a good look at how they go about developing their sport.
Previously, it was there were a couple of people who had development initiatives where they try get people going. UCT and Marty's, Tux, and there's a couple of universities that are trying to grow the sport. But recently, in order to get to this tournament, we've put the onus as SAFTA on all the clubs, where every single club actually had to do a development initiative to try grow the sport, introduce it to new people in order for them to attend the tournament.
Ultimate Frisbee is a truly inclusive sport, with mixed teams across the ages playing regularly. But how does one really get involved in playing it on an organised and competitive basis?
So if you've never played Frisbee before, I think the best thing to do is find out, is there any sort of local pickup or social games happening? Because at those, you generally have the people who are also playing competitively attend those. And those are the people you can then link up with to find out, cool, these are the clubs in your area, these are the people you need to contact to join, and then you can try out for one of the clubs. Because quite a few of the clubs you have to attend trials to get to. So you'd have to find out about them. But the SAFTA has a website, there's a Facebook page, so you can also find out more about the teams there. There's also a very good, the Cape Town, CTFDA, the local body. They've also got all the information about their region. GFDA, which is the one in Gauteng, they have all the information about their local clubs. So that you can definitely find out about all the clubs in your region if you're wanting to join a team.
Two young players who've taken that step from pickup games to the more serious stuff in competition are Louis Bouquet and Thuli Mayoba, who explained to us how they got involved in Ultimate Frisbee.
How I got into Frisbee was that I used to play pickup, which is like a social form of Frisbee, where people just kind of throw on a field or on the beach by themselves. So I got into that way. I had a manager where I worked who used to play, so he introduced us to the sport. So yeah, I'd play a few sessions a month, and then when I got into university in first year in 2012, UCT had a team, so I joined the UCT team, and that's how I kind of got into competitive ultimate.
I have teachers in high school who introduced me to it like on a small scale, but when I got to university, I had played rugby in high school, and when I got to university I wanted something with a bit less contact and just as competitive and just as athletic, and Frisbee gave a perfect opportunity for that, so I took up the sport.
Ultimate Frisbee straddles that balance between a fun recreational activity and a serious competitive sport. And moving from one to another takes plenty of hard work. So what does Thuli believe makes the sport so special?
Okay, so for me, I'd always been a sports person, even throughout high school. I'd always enjoyed playing sports. So when I found out about Frisbee, I was keen to try it, but I didn't think I'd play like competitively. And then when I got to UCT and started playing competitively, I enjoyed it, but I still was keen to try other sports as well. But what kept me playing for longer, or kind of made me decide to choose Frisbee as my primary sport, was the fact that we have something called spirit of the game, which is really like a governing notion that we all use, which is the fact that as players we have to support each other on the field, even if you're on the opposition, and we kind of play by the rules because we don't have referees or anyone kind of looking over each game, so we have to decide on plays and on contestations as well by ourselves. So for me, that's what kept me coming back to Frisbee, because the sport itself is quite a friendly sport compared to other sports I've played, and I really enjoyed the kind of ethos and the vibe that it had.
The competitive element of Ultimate Frisbee comprises 3 different categories. There's a space for everyone, as Thuli explains.
There's open, which is the men's version. There's women's tournaments, and there's also the mixed. So in South Africa, we play mixed most predominantly, whereas other countries like in the States or in the UK, they'd play open and women's mostly. But we play mixed because I think when the sport started off, there weren't that many people to kind of feed into like a men's team and a women's team to compete against each other. So it was kind of mixed, and it just kind of grew that way. And I mean, even as a university student, that's the only kind of team we kind of knew. The structure of the team was having males and females on the same team. So those are the 3 kind of distinctions when it comes to Frisbee, but we do also have like masters teams representing every now and then, which is just like the age difference, and the younger teams as well.
There are formal associations of Ultimate Frisbee clubs all over the country, and that's where players like Thuli get their weekly workouts. These clubs are the best place to go when looking to start to play the sport.
How most people usually get into competitive ultimate is, so most groups have like a pickup team. For example, at the moment I'm playing with a team in Tunzini, which is a very social team, but none of them play competitively. So how it usually happens is that a group of people who usually play together become more interested in kind of leveling up or moving on to the next level. So we just form teams and hubs wherever we are. And then in order to be able to compete competitively, you'd have to have an association or be part of an association. So that some of the associations, for example, you have Cape Town Ultimate, which is the kind of, or CTFDA, which is the association for the Cape Town teams, but we're kind of trying to branch out into the Western Cape as well. And then there's GFDA, which is the Gauteng kind of governing body. So you'd have to apply through the governing body and then take part in tournaments and leagues as well. So you qualify for tournaments like these through playing leagues and playing regionals as well.
As we've seen and heard, there's a great deal of physical fitness required to play Ultimate Frisbee. It's all about stamina and being focused enough to be able to throw and catch the disc. So how long are the matches and how does the scoring work?
So we have a game, so it's 100 minutes long, and it's usually first team that scores 15 wins. So we sub off every point. Unlike other sports, which would sub off only at halftime, we can sub off after every point. So we'd have a team of maybe 16 to 20 players, and on each line you'd have to have 4 males and 3 females, or vice versa. And we'd field those players, but every point we can change them as well. And then halftime is at 8 points. If it's a game to 15, it's at 8 points. And then after that, you'd play the rest of the game. So we only play to 100 if no one's gone to 15 yet. Otherwise, if the first team scores to 15, then it's just game over regardless of the time.
100 minutes of play is a lot longer than most of the popular conventional sporting codes. So it does mean a lot of running for the players, which means a lot of training, both for fitness and skill. How often do these players get to train and practice?
When I used to play rugby, obviously then I had quite a couple of practices a week. We had 2 practices a week plus games. That doesn't change in university for this. We require that much from our players because it does take that much to make it through a tournament. So we do have regular fitness sessions every week, at least twice a week, plus practices. It is quite intense, but it's what's needed.
Lewis is a serious Ultimate Frisbee player, having played both open and men's mixed Ultimate Frisbee. And he explains the difference between the 2 disciplines.
I feel like I have played both. Mixed is a bit more composed. I feel like decisions are weighted a bit more differently because there's a wider range of speed and, I don't know, all kinds. But yeah, experience as well, because we do take on a lot of new mixed players. But yeah, I do enjoy mixed more because, just playing with different levels of players helps you improve in other aspects that you wouldn't expect as well. So yeah, I would prefer mixed, but opens is also very enjoyable. It is very competitive and requires just as much effort. So yeah, I think I love both.
Lewis has had the fortunate opportunity to travel and play Ultimate Frisbee overseas. And these experiences have given him plenty of insight on the sport and an understanding of just how big it is in the other countries.
I have traveled internationally with Ultimate Frisbee, and it was rather competitive. Frisbee is a pretty new sport in South Africa, so we do learn a lot and we do learn it quite quickly, and regardless of how athletic you are, other teams will have more experience. They have ultimate Frisbee in very large scale in high schools, so they come into the sport, into university, into the open level quite experienced and quite ready to play at that level. We had a lot to learn, but I feel like we did do well considering the conditions that we learned in and how little we'd been playing. But it was a very competitive experience, but still very good.
Having said all that, Lewis is adamant that it's all worth it, and that getting involved in Ultimate Frisbee is not that difficult. All you have to do is to search the various social media platforms and then join in.
There are various teams all over the country, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, a couple in East London. There are many teams that you can get in contact with. They do tend to have Facebook pages and all kinds of social media. If you get involved with that, you can find them and find teams and people to play with. But as far as taking up the sport competitively, the only advice I can give is don't give up. It's really hard in the beginning. It's a lot of work. The fitness is tough. Learning to throw the disc is a very challenging experience, but it is worth it in the end.
The final results at the South African Ultimate Mixed Championships in Stellenbosch saw the Long Donkeys from Pietermaritzburg take the overall win ahead of the UCT Flying Tigers and third-placed Ghost Ultimate Team from Cape Town. The UCT Flying Tigers won the Spirit title ahead of the Eastern Skies and Marty's Ultimate 2. If you would like to showcase a sporting story, an event, a character, or a spectacular achievement with us, let us know at showcase@supersport.com.